They said the first sound Margaret ever heard was the crack of the overseer's whip, splitting the dawn like thunder over the fields of Savannah. She never remembered silence. Not in the slave quarters where babies wailed through the night, their cries swallowed by the heavy heat, not in the rows of cotton that bled her small hands raw, and not even in her dreams, where chains clinked like lullabies. She was born into a world where the sun rose only to watch the broken, and where the earth drank the tears of those too tired to cry. By the time Margaret turned 7, she understood that nothing in her life belonged to her, not the scrap of cloth that barely covered her body, not the bruised piece of cornbread she clutched at night, not even her name, spoken only in whispers by the woman who had given her life but could not give her freedom. Her mother, Ruth, had been sold twice before settling on the Whitmore plantation, her beauty once praised and then punished. She carried her pain in silence, shoulders bent, eyes lowered, the weight of survival pressing her spine into a permanent bow. And from her mother, Margaret learned the first rule of the quarters: silence is safety. The days bled together in a haze of sweat and fear. Morning bells dragged them from restless sleep, and the overseer's voice followed like a curse, barking orders that cut deeper than the lash she carried. Margaret, too small for the heavy sacks of cotton, was sent to the big house to scrub floors and polish silver until her knuckles were raw and cracked. She moved quietly, her bare feet whispering across wooden floors that gleamed like mirrors, her reflection warped and fleeting as she caught the pitying stares of the older servants. She never spoke unless spoken to. She never looked up unless told. And when her tiny hands trembled, she hid them behind her back, praying no one would notice. But Savannah was not a place for prayers. It was a place for bargains, made in blood and silence. Margaret's first lesson in cruelty came on a heavy summer afternoon when the air itself seemed to suffocate. A boy, no older than 10, was caught stealing a heel of bread from the kitchen. She had seen him do it, seen the desperation in his eyes, the hollow curve of his cheeks, but said nothing, clutching her rag and keeping her gaze fixed on the floor. That night, when the whip sang through the quarters and the boy's screams split the sky, Margaret pressed her palms over her ears and wished she could vanish. In the morning, he was gone, and the dirt by the fence was stained a dark, quiet red. It was then that she understood. Here, survival was bought with obedience, and innocence was a currency that never lasted long. As the years passed, Margaret grew into herself, tall, lean, with eyes too sharp for a girl her age. The other women noticed first. They warned her in hushed voices, told her to keep her head down, to hide her face when the master came riding through the fields. "Beauty is a curse," her mother whispered one night, her calloused fingers brushing Margaret's hair away from her damp forehead. But beauty was not something Margaret could hide, and the men who owned her world were men who believed ownership was a birthright. She learned to read fear in her mother's face, the way her eyes darted toward the big house whenever footsteps echoed on the veranda, the way her hands trembled when a carriage rolled up the long dirt path, dust curling like ghosts in its wake. And Margaret learned to be still, to make herself invisible, to hold